When you're transcribing a solo, how do you know that you got the right notes? In this short lesson, I'm going to give you 3 strategies that you can use that are going to help solve that problem. So welcome back, guys. This is Transcribing Hacks episode 2 of 3. So this is a little mini series I'm doing on transcribing. And if you haven't seen the first episode, then click up here. This will take you across to the first episode. Now that first episode was all on rhythm, how you can get the right rhythms and how to work them out. As I said before, this one is going to be all on notes. And I'm going to use a short phrase from a Lynn Ariel piano solo as an example to work through all of these techniques with you. So I've left a link down to it in the bio again. The solo is from a tune called Carry On, which is on the album Nuance that she did with Randy Brecker. It's an incredible record. Make sure you get it. The Spotify link is down below. So let's have a listen to the extract of the solo that we'll be working with. So it's just that first phrase that we want to get, the ba-bum ba-da-doo-doo-doo-doo. So the first method I'm going to teach you is actually what I used to do when I first started doing transcription. So this is perfect for anyone who's a beginner transcriber or new to transcribing. And this is what I like to refer to as the brute force method of transcribing. So I'm borrowing this term brute force from code breaking. So let me just explain what this is. If I was to have a 3-wheel bicycle lock, so bicycle lock that's got 3 of the little spinning wheels on that you use to set a combination. If someone who didn't know the code was to come along, get that bicycle lock and use a brute force code breaking method to crack the code, what they would do is they would try every single combination of numbers until they found the right code. So what they would do is they would sit there and they would go 001, 002, 003, 004 and so on. Now this idea of brute force transcription is actually quite similar but also quite simple. Back when I used to use this method, what I used to do is I used to play the recording along and stop it on the single note sometimes that I wanted to transcribe. And then I would either try and sing that note out loud or try and keep it in my head, and then on the bass simply play every single note until I found the note that matched up with the one that I was singing. So if I try and transcribe the very first few notes of that phrase as an example, let's have a listen to the phrase again now. Okay, so we can hear the very first note of the phrase is ba. Now if I just sing that, and I'll play, I mean I don't know where it is on the bass neck, but if I just play from somewhere, and I'm going to chromatically play every note until I find it. So ba. Okay, there it is. I have my first note. Now this may not be the most sophisticated way of transcribing, but it does get you off to a good start. Particularly if you're new and you find transcribing overwhelming, this is going to get you the right notes. But you don't have to go through this lengthy brute force process every single time if you're using this method. Because now we've got our first note, we can listen to the other notes in the melody or in the phrase and begin to start making some logical assumptions. So for example, if I sing the first 2 notes of the phrase, so I've got the first one, I want the second one now, ba ba. If I try and find that second note, I can hear that the second note is actually higher than the first one. So this means even though I might still use a brute force method to try and find it, I've only now got to use the notes that are higher than my first note. I don't have to play every single one. So I can start from here. So I've got ba, and I know the second one, ba, ba, ba. Got it. Found my second note. And we can take this a step further when we start to think about the third note that's in the phrase. Ba bum ba. If I think about that third note, I can hear that it's not really a lot higher than the note that came before it. So ba 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 da da da. I know that they're quite close by, quite close together, so I'm not going to have to jump from here all the way up to there, or here down to here, or something ridiculous like that. Even though I know it's higher and I don't know what it is, I know it's somewhere close to this note. So ba ba ba, and I got it right there right away. So it's just a tone above it. So I could go through that whole first phrase if I wanted, just going from note to note until I found it. And whilst this might take a little bit of time, as I say, if you're new to transcribing, this will get you off on the right foot and this will begin to develop your ear. And when I used to use this technique, this did get me off to a great start. But eventually what I began to notice was that I started to recognize more than just one note at a time. I started to recognize certain phrases and patterns of note that came up quite often. And this meant that my ear was improving and I was ready for a slightly bigger challenge. Now, if you're at this same place, what I'm going to recommend you do is the second technique which I've got for you, which is rather than using a brute force method and trying to find every single note and go one by one, try and learn to sing a particular phrase of a solo and then teach yourself to play it by singing it to yourself. So if I finish off that phrase that I was transcribing there, ba bum ba da da do do do. Here, what I would try and do is I'll listen to the record quite a lot of times actually until I can accurately sing that melody, that phrase, note for note. So I can sing the rhythms, I can sing the pitches accurately, and then I'll just sing through it until I can teach myself to play it on here. So ba da 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 do do do. I've already got the first few, so ba boom ba. Ba, that's not that much higher. Ba, ba, and then ba do do. I'm actually just going back down the notes that I came up. Ba boom boom. And that last one I can hear is the same twice. So I'm just going up and down a B minor pentatonic scale, as it turns out. So ba boom ba ba do do do. Now this is a little bit more advanced, but the reason why this is such a great way to learn is because you're learning to sing a solo. Ultimately, you're concerned with sound first. So what you're doing is you're developing your ear by learning to sing the solo, but then by teaching it to yourself, by singing it to yourself, you're actually developing the connection between what you hear and where the sounds that you hear are located on the instrument. And you can make this more or less difficult to suit wherever you are and what your ability is. So some of the more advanced people will actually learn to sing an entire solo from start to finish before they even touch the instrument. I've done this before. Again, it's an incredible learning experience, and if for those of you that have the patience and you have the ability and you want that challenge, I really thoroughly recommend that you do it, because I learned so much and I still learn an incredible amount every time I do this. But if you don't feel that you're at that level yet, start with small phrases. So if we go through this whole phrase that we're transcribing, so we've got this bit. Now if we try and find that second phrase, okay, so just a quick note here. I obviously can't sing as low as the phrase is going. If you find that something is out of your range vocally, just move it up or down an octave to suit. Doesn't matter. As long as you're getting the right pitches, it's absolutely fine. So let's start that again. Ba 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 da da do do do. Ba 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 be 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 do da. I will go through that and I will sing that a few times until I can make my way through it and teach myself by singing it. So ba 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 be be do do ba 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 ba. Now, to me, listening to it, talking about pattern recognition, it sounds like what I'm hearing there is a similar kind of minor pentatonic phrase. It sounds like the patterns are similar, it sounds like the language is quite similar, so I just got to find the starting note. Ba 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 do 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 do. Ba 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 ba. Okay, so that's lower than my starting note, lower my tonic. Ba. Okay, E, perfect, got it. Ba 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 da. Now, talking about recognizing patterns, I can hear ba, 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 ba. That's the same pattern that I had earlier. It just starts from E rather than from B. So ba, 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 be, do, da. Then I go down, up, and then down. Ba, 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 be, boo, be, boo, boo. That's it, I've got it there. So there's my phrase. Da, do, da, dee, do, dee, do, da. So this is an incredibly powerful technique, and I would really recommend that you start trying to transcribe this way if you can. Start with small phrases. You don't have to do whole solos at first, but if you have got the patience and the ability to do that, it's completely worth your while. Now, the final technique, this is the last thing that I will often do. Remember that this is about trying to check we've got the correct notes. So this last technique I don't actually use to figure out the notes, but what I will do is once I've transcribed the solo or the melody or whatever I'm working on, I will actually record myself playing along to the original and then listen back to it. Often we find that wrong notes kind of slip through the cracks a little bit and we don't notice them when we're playing because a lot of our attention is focused on playing. It's not necessarily focused on listening as such. So by recording myself along to the original, putting the bass away and listening back to the recording, I can then hear where there are some issues, and even if I can't hear exactly what the correct note should be, I can at least get a pen and paper out, make a few notes, and I've got an idea about where I need to start and where I need to look. So often when I do this, what I find is that I'll record something, have a listen back, I've made a few mistakes, I'll make the notes of where they are, and then I might need to put the bass down, go and have a break for an hour or something like that, come back to it with fresh ears, and then I can figure out where these problems are and correct them. And it doesn't matter how good your recording is. At the moment I record into Logic, so I've got pretty good quality audio, but when I first started doing this I was recording through a laptop microphone. Sometimes I used to do this on a phone. Just anything that will allow you to hear your transcription alongside the original. So it doesn't have to be the best quality audio. It obviously helps, but just work with whatever you have and that's absolutely fine. So if these 3 methods have given you some new ideas, or if you've tried these and in your experience you've had a few problems or they've worked for you, whatever your viewpoint is, I want to hear about it. So let me know by leaving a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, make sure you click the subscribe button because we're putting up a load of great tutorials here every week. And finally, make sure you head over to onlinebassguitar.com to check out the free lessons blog and courses we've got over there. And then stay tuned because Transcribing Hacks Part 3 is coming in the next week, and I will see you guys in that lesson. Take care.